Welcome to the Nano podcast. I'm your host, Will Chernlin, and I'm excited to have you join me on this journey through the world of nano companies. For the past decade, I've talked to thousands of business owners across various industries. It's been an enlightening experience revealing the vast tapestries of entrepreneurship and innovation that thrives beneath the surface of mainstream media coverage. Each week, I will interview different leaders of nano-cap publicly traded companies to learn about their history, what they do now, and their future. As a reminder, none of this information is financial advice, and it is all for entertainment purposes only. Let's start this week's episode. Hi, everyone. This week we have Dan O'Toole, CEO of ARAI, stock ticker ARAI. ARAI is a pioneer in mailbox as a service, MaaS, providing secure and seamless delivery and pickup infrastructure for the last inch of the autonomous last mile. Dan, thanks for coming on.
Hey, Will, thanks for having me, man. How are you?
Doing pretty good. So looking into kind of what you were doing in college with debate club and this and that, and then kind of looking through your early career, it doesn't scream to me like electrical engineer. And then sometime in 2014, you launched Drone Deck, which is obviously a very tech intensive product. So tell me a little bit about kind of just your early self and if you've always been into kind of cutting edge tech and engineering, and what gave you just the initial idea of Drone Deck way back in 2014 before drones were the cool thing?
Yeah. Hey, thanks for asking. Yeah, there's a lot there. Really been an entrepreneur since I was a kid, frankly. Always had my own little business. Always was very competitive, tried to, analyze things. I always thought about, if something's done this way, why isn't it done that way? And I always look at everything. That's kind of how I approach things. How could it be better? And I think about that on everything. So it's interesting. And I have a lot of ideas, and I always write down every idea. I have a list of over 200 ideas. I always said I was going to try to do every idea before I died, but now I think I've kind of given up on that. I'm doing something so big here at ARAI. I think this is it. I am not an engineer. I don't play one on TV. Didn't stay at a Holiday Inn Express last night or anything like that. But what I do find is, if you're a visionary and you have great ideas, put the right people around yourself. Recognize your own deficiencies. Shore those up with the best people in the world, and you can do anything.
And so with kind of I was just interested in all your different activities you're in college and such, because that's usually where you're doing stuff that you just truly like. Is there any sort of conscious move you did to kind of combine your orating skills and speaking skills and storytelling skills with being an entrepreneur, knowing that you have all these ideas, but you got to sell them too?
In college, I went to Ball State University, Muncie, Indiana. Great school. Loved it mainly because of the accessibility to do everything you wanted to do. At Ball State, we had the Ball State Daily News, which is the number one student newspaper in the country at that time. I had my own column. I was a reporter on WBST radio. I had my own little spotlight segment, and I was on the debate team. I tried to do everything. I came from Noblesville, Indiana, which is a small city. Didn't have great access to do clubs and things like that at Noblesville. So I got to college. I was really amazed that I was able to do really cool things that I wanted to do in high school, didn't have access to. And I got to college, which is the big time, right? And I got to do those things. So I celebrated that, took advantage of it. You talk about storytelling and narrating and orating and all those things. It's not something that I was ever great at or frankly enjoyed. There's a lot of stress doing public speaking. I don't care who you are. I'm sure the majority of the people get butterflies and a little nervous when they're doing those things. But, when you get thrown into some roles as a CEO of ARAI, a NASDAQ company, you're thrown into a lot of things that the day before you weren't. Going to investor meetings, you're talking to analysts, investor conferences, strategic, institutional, all these things, all your shareholders. We had 5,000 shareholders in our journey before we even went public. I'm very proud of that. And I built a relationship, with each one of those guys. And that's something that I value highly. And that's what it's about to me.
Yeah. So I mentioned earlier Drone Deck. That was, I don't know if it was your first drone company, but it was 12 years ago. And you mentioned earlier that you have 200 or so business ideas floating in your head of different things you'd love to work on if there was enough time in the day. So with you having this experience with drones, you having all these ideas in your head, what made Arrive AI the idea that you knew you wanted to spend your time on, and that this is where you should actually spend your precious resources?
Thanks for asking that question. It's a great question because I have always been an entrepreneur my whole career. To Drone Arrive AI, I want to be clear, is Drone Deck. Drone Deck started.
They are? Okay.
Yeah, it's the same company. I'll tell you, something you just said there is the reason we changed the name. Everyone would say, "You're Drone Deck. How many drones do you have?" And I'd say, "We are not the drone, we're the Drone Deck." And then they'd say, "Well, what can your drones fly in bad weather?" And I'd say, "We're not the." So it became apparent that we needed to come up with a name that was more aspirational, less tethered to the drone, more tethered to, autonomous delivery of every kind and pickup. And so the name Arrive AI came into the fold, and, I celebrate that. It was a great, great change. I wish I could take credit for it. Pride of authorship with Drone Deck, the OG name of the company. But you got to celebrate other ideas, right? And you got to listen to everything. That's what makes great leaders, I think. And so Mark Ham, our chief operating officer, said, "Hey, why don't we name it Arrive AI?" And I said, "You know what?" He said Arrive, actually. I threw the AI in there, but so I got to take a little credit back. But I thought that was a great idea. It was a great name. As I saw us going to the NASDAQ, it really made sense to have kind of a name that I would put in the same vein as like an Oracle or a Google or, some of those other kind of companies that are big time. So we changed the name. Same company, same shareholders, and same mission, but we're going forward in a big way. As far as my past entrepreneurial, quest that I was on, I've done a lot of things through my career. Most recently, a couple of things: commercial real estate. I own a portfolio of industrial warehouses in the Indianapolis submarket, and that is a great business that I was in. And then just most recent, before starting Drone Deck /Arrive, I had a company called Facility Maintenance USA. I started it. I had a painting business. We did commercial painting in the Midwest. And I came up with what I call Facility Maintenance USA brand promise. That was to always do three things: show up when you say you will, do what you say you will, and when you're done, wrap up the result in a bow and say, "Hey, Will, this is what we did. Take it off your plate," giving you closure. And so what happened with that company was, a lot of big, sophisticated companies, I'm talking corporate McDonald's, Panera Bread, Enterprise Rent-A-Car, and many others, would come back to us after we did this great painting project and say, "Hey, you guys killed it on that. Can you replace our windows? Can you do new carpeting, whatever?" And I would always say no, because I didn't want to go a bridge too far and ruin our reputation because it wasn't something that we were great at. But what happened was, these big, sophisticated companies kept coming back. And what I realized is, facility maintenance is highly fragmented. You got Floyd's Plumbing. He's got 3 guys, and Floyd's job today is to have those guys busy tomorrow. So when an emergency pops up and McDonald's calls, he's got his guys booked today. He said, "We can get there tomorrow or next week. We can't get there today." And so that became a big opportunity for me. So I kept getting these calls, and I thought, you know what? Let's do this. So I set up a whole national network of outsourced 1099s that worked for us. We got preferential pricing, urgent response ahead of anybody else. I put this whole network together, and then we went out and put on some of the biggest companies in the world, and that very much resonated. And that's what I was doing when I had the idea for Arrive. And when this idea of Arrive AI came on, it just hit me like a ton of bricks. I feel like God just gave me this vision and said, "Do this." Ran to the patent office. I called my attorney on a Friday when I had this idea. I said, "Hey, John, I got this idea. I want to run with it. Monday morning, I'm going to meet you. I'm going to have the whole patent abstract. I want to get this filed ASAP." Monday comes around. I went and met with my attorney, John Richardson, who's our chief legal counsel and patent attorney here at Arrive now. And we filed that thing immediately. On the way home from his office, he called me. He goes, "Hey," I'm going to offer you something I've never done before. I go, "Yeah, what's that?" He goes, "I'm willing to do all the IP work for you for a small piece of equity in your company." I said, "John," for me, that was exciting and validating, right? What had happened was, he had looked, after I left, he did a patent search and found out it was wide open. There wasn't any prior art. We were the very first. And that's very exciting because it allows you the opportunity to get huge claims that are very broad and really build a great moat around your business. And so what I told him was, I said, "John, here's the thing. This isn't a restaurant where you throw $100,000 in and you get 30%. I'm dealing in shares, not percentages. I said, if you're going to do that, I'm going to give you a very small part because this is such a big idea because I understand. And that was quite validating. It made me feel great that somebody of his, experience looked and validated what I knew and believed. So fast forward, the patent actually issued 3 years later. And what it revealed was that we had beaten Amazon by 4 days. We beat the U.S. Postal Service by 2 weeks, and we beat other companies by less than a month. So what I had come to know, and that's the reason I raced to the patent office, was it is always a race. I feel like God, when he gives one person an idea, he gives 10 people that same idea, and it's up to you to execute. There's the guy that did it, and there's the other 9 guys that say, I had that same idea. What would have happened if I would have done, and that I hadn't lost a couple of previous patents, which could have been really big. One was the previous channel button on your remote control. I had that idea, and Sony came up with it and filed a month before I did. I had an idea for a medical device. I went to file that, and General Motors had beat me by 3 months on that. So when I had this idea, I'm like, I'm not going to be, denied here. And I ran out, got the patent, and that gave me the impetus to move forward. So from that day through today, we've raised $55 million. We've gone public on the NASDAQ. We had 5,000 pre-public investors, and we've got tons of IP that we built around this since then. And we're executing on this huge vision that's going to change the world.
Yeah, no, that's super exciting. I had never thought of even the concept of USPS having patents. It feels like those should be mine partially because I helped pay for it.
That's right.
But so we danced around it a little bit, but what is Arrive AI?
Arrive AI, in the simplest terms, it's mailbox 2.0. Back in 1858, the mailbox was invented for the first time. It hasn't been disrupted since then. But I would say this, in 1858, even back then, they recognized the need for a mailbox to secure items to be picked up and delivered. So fast forward to today, you've got drones, robots, unmanned vehicles, in addition to conventional, UPS, USPS. No more today can those items be dropped on the ground or picked up from the ground than they could in 1858. So what do you need? You need the next generation autonomous delivery and pickup mailbox that accommodates and facilitates all that commerce, both from robots, drones, others. So that's what we're holding up. We own that IP. We are the gateway to every home and business throughout the world with great connectivity where every delivery will start or end. That's us.
So essentially it is a secure drone landing pad where they can drop off packages wherever they may have a Arrive AI mailbox, correct?
Yeah, not just for drones. Drones can deliver to it, but so can robots, unmanned vehicles, and conventional mail, UPS, others. Yes.
So it's a wide open blue ocean of people you could target as your first customers. And you've chosen to go after hospitals, healthcare, and such. Is it partially just because this is the thing that needs, say, blood or some sort of vaccine as fast as possible and they're willing to pay the most for it? Or is it that because you can refrigerate or heat your mailboxes that you just have such a unique solution that they can't not use you? Or kind of like what kind of give you the confidence that healthcare is the first thing to go after?
Yeah, healthcare very well aligns with what we're doing. Everything you said, chain of custody, heated and cooled, autonomous, being able to, healthcare is constrained with all the welfare reform and everything, that insurance, there's always pressure to save costs and at the same time deliver better care, right? So what if you can reduce people, save money that way, and at the same time redeploy the people that you intentioned to have, think about everyone knows the hospital situation where you're hitting the call button, nobody ever comes, right? It's because, they're understaffed. Everybody's doing everything. One of the KPIs that hospitals have is trying to keep skilled people in the areas that they were intended to be working in. And I'm proud to say at Hancock Health, a central Indiana healthcare facility where we are deployed, for the first time ever, they've been able to reach that KPI, and they're attributing that to us because we're allowing autonomous delivery to happen and not disrupt the patient care that they're giving, dedicated to each wing. So here's an example. If the cancer wing is extracting samples, the lab is a quarter mile away. So what naturally happens is they accrue a half dozen or a dozen samples, and then they will take those at one time. And now what you've done is you've transferred this bottleneck of samples from one place to the other. Now the lab is overwhelmed with all these samples when they had bandwidth to be doing things in real time. Look at the other side of that. A robot, you place the sample in real time in a arrive point. An API call is dispatched to our robot. The robot goes and grabs it, takes it down to the other arrive point. It notifies the lab once it's safely placed there, and that technician can come out and grab that in real time. So now what you've done is you've allowed the dedicated help to stay where they are supposed to be. You've allowed samples to happen in their own cadence in real time. And then in doing that, you're getting better patient care, better outcomes. You're giving better results quicker. And then you're turning over those beds quicker, creating, when you go to the hospital, you're always like, this is going to be 3 hours or whatever it's going to be. What if things could happen faster? One of the things I always say is better, faster, fresher, cheaper, greener, safer. Those are all things that are being delivered through Arrive in this whole new autonomous paradigm.
Yeah, and I know it's a huge market. Blade, who used to do kind of like the Uber of helicopters, they've actually rebranded themselves as Strata Critical Medical. And they're doing, just like in the New York area, transferring blood via helicopters, which is a lot more expensive than having drones fly things around. And so, and their market cap is $460 million. Definitely a huge market there. So, question about kind of the capabilities of your product. Where do you hand off to kind of third parties? You guys you don't make drones, as you mentioned earlier. And so is it mostly just you have the mailbox and then the API that can connect to different third-party drones that can do deliveries, or say autonomous vehicles that can do the deliveries? Or do you have a whole dashboard that hospitals use to see where everything is at what point? Or kind of like, how deep do you go in that software?
Yeah, we have our own API that we are sharing with all of our partners. We always say we're consolidating all delivery and pickup to one secure point. And the thing about that is there's not going to be 3 Arrive points in front of your home or your business. Google, Amazon, Walmart, UPS, USPS, whatever. There's going to be one. And we know that we deliver the greatest user experience by being agnostic or universal to everybody, right? We don't want to be limiting. We want to create a platform and a network where it's so ubiquitous and so valuable to the user that we end up pulling every shipper and deliverer onto the network because that's where the demand is. I say that we're developing a great app that's going to be able to do a lot of things. One is reverse logistics. Right now, if you want to send something back, you go to Whole Foods, Kohl's, you go to the UPS store, whatever. What if you had a shipping store at your door? Everything's app controlled. We set up a marketplace where we can get you the best pricing, the quickest turnaround time, and we could capture some of the beta or the delta between what we're paying and what you're paying. We can dimensionally measure and weigh items inside an Arrive point. It's all app driven. You don't have to find a receipt. You don't have to print a label. You populate your last purchases. You pick the one you want to send back. And that all happens seamlessly. That's where commerce is going. I order a lot of things online, and sometimes things don't even show up. And I'm like, where did I order that? I don't remember who I ordered it from. What happened to it? And I have to go in and research, and I figure it out. And it's like, oh, the order was canceled. I didn't even know. What if everything was funneled into your Arrive app, and you could see in one dashboard the status of every order you have out there, and you can know when it's coming, why it's not coming, all these different things. That's where we're going to a day when all your commerce flows through your Arrive AI app.
No, it sounds like almost like a Jetson-like future with like a pneumatic tube in your house where things just kind of appear and you don't have to really think about it, no questions asked type of thing. It's very cool. So as CEO, how do you balance the idea that you want to be partnered and working with every hospital under the sun, but at the same time, you have the grander vision of being the future of commerce as a whole? Like, how do you kind of like separate your day where you got to go after the dollars that you can make today, but you still want to keep your eye on the prize of the future?
Well, it's kind of the same. Really, it's all the same. I'm focused on where we can get traction quickly and just get going. I believe that at some point there'll be a day in the future where our biggest peril, if you will, the biggest obstacle or the biggest fear is trying to get ahead of ourselves and fulfilling all the demand that we're going to create. This is a product that once people see it in action, everyone wants it. And the greed or the, trying to jump ahead and grab everything you can at that moment is a challenge. And we have to be disciplined through that. I'm very much dedicated on starting development at ground zero, being as close to our headquarters in Fishers, Indiana as we can. We could be all over the world today, but the reality of that is it takes human resources, bandwidth. It also takes a lot of capital. So if you could do all those same things in your own backyard, so now all of your learnings and engineering tweaks are linear to the product. You can spool them up very quickly. Your cost of support is the lowest it's ever going to be because it's the closest to you. If you could do all those things great, right in your own backyard, and then roll them out bigger and bigger and cast that wider net, I think that's a great strategy. And that's what we're trying to stay really disciplined on.
Well, it's all exciting stuff. I feel like I got a glimpse into the future of the world. So thank you so much for Dan for creating it. If people want to learn more about Arrive AI, what you're doing, keep up to date with it, where should I send my audience?
Hey, go to our website, arriveai.com. If you have a specific question, email me, dan@arriveai.com. Transparency, communication. You can go to our website, sign up for the Dan Show and a lot of our updates. We're always transparency, communication. I'm an old dude. I've had my phone for 35 years. I put my number out there to the world, 317-694-7520. If you have something you want to say, good, bad, ugly, I'm right here. I own it. Every day, that I go to work, I always say three things. I want to be the boss I want to work for. I want this to be the company I want to work for. And I want this to be the company I would invest in. And if we can do those, man, we're going to be great. So I own it. Bring it on.
Awesome. That's a first for sure, sharing the phone number. Well, for those of you still listening, please remember to subscribe and review. Thanks.
This podcast is for informational purposes only and does not provide financial, legal, or any other advice. The information is not investment advice or any offer to buy or sell any securities or to make any investment. The views expressed by the guests are their own, and any reference to third-party products, services, or information does not constitute an endorsement therefor by Nano Cap Podcast or its affiliates. The Nano Cap Podcast Express disclaims all liability for any individual's use of the information presented in this podcast.